that could convert into a disease or not. If you have millions of that, a pattern will start developing. You'll say, okay, people in that age group, people whether their sex type, whether male or female or child or girl or a boy, age group, their sex type, their lifestyle, their dietary habits, they responded or didn't respond, एक pattern बनना शुरू होने लगता है. I'm giving you a very simplified version of that. Now multiply that world over. If that data is available, if you start using and converting that data into useful information, what kind of markers were there, then now combine that to all the omics. Let's say, for example, I mentioned, if there are samples available, you take those samples in those patient population, you do the testing, and you'll say, okay, these kind of proteins are actually emerging more and more for X type of population. Now you have used that data to convert into a very useful information, right? So that is what big data is. And data, and now see, how many different disciplines are needed. This data is being generated for decades and decades. Computers were not there. Data was being stored in whatever electronic form, before electronic, the paper form was there. But that knowledge was there. Now take all of that knowledge, computer storage capacity wasn't there, now you can talk about, take all of that data, big data, store it, try to create algorithm to understand and make meaningful outcome of those. It could save many years of research to see what kind of disease, what kind of drug should be developed, where people will respond or not, or who will be the responder or non-responder, right? That's all what is big data. I'm just using, for example, just giving an example of this gastroenterology and hepatology, for example. You take all of this information that is available, use omics, electronic health record, EHR, take that all patient reported data, clinical trials, you take all of that data and start to make sense out of that data. Okay, who responded, what worked, what didn't work, who will be the good candidate to study, who should not be studied because the drug is not going to make any help to them. It creates a useful information. So that's basically what the big data is. That is what the big data science is. And if you have all of that data available, that data could be very effective in trying to develop new therapies. So see, traditional ways, you look at the experimental, you do the discovery and go through the process that I just showed you in a few slides prior to this. If big data is available, then you can use that information, go through these experimental design, but now very targeted who will respond, and you can design your therapeutic approaches for a specific patient pool. So it narrows down the time, it saves money and effort, and hopefully more effective drugs can come out of that. So this is basically, you can take any one of these diseases, identify the biomarker based on, for example, if drugs are working in population, there are 10 million people, a drug is working in 500,000 people. You analyze based on omics उन 500,000 people के अंदर कौन सा प्रोटीन था जिसके ऊपर ये काम कर रहा है. Though you have a biomarker now, so for that biomarker so it saved you a lot of time based on the prior data which was already available, and that can help to expedite the process. So this is again, the process that can be. So this is what basically artificial intelligence, AI. This is one of the applications that is being used, because now what basically you're doing is you have all these huge peak of the huge data available. You are writing basically algorithm to make sense of and create useful information to develop new therapies. So this is in summary basically what I just showed you is the journey of how it started from where it was, and as you can see here, this is just last 15 years. It's just 15 years that what we are talking about all these things. Okay, now, but still our understanding of this is again on the macro, outside of humans. Inside of, do we really understand how human cells work? it's a soup of, it's an ocean of knowledge, ocean of biology. So कहाँ गए उनका क्वेश्चन था, बनाने कुदरत की रचना बड़ी ज़बरदस्त है, उसको समझने के लिए आप लोगों ने बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूट करना है अब. So basically, you know, this is the drug development process as you see here. Discover something, do preclinical, clinical development. वाला पार्ट तो अभी मैंने टच नहीं किया. I will come in one of those lectures. So this is the scientist which can be easily controlled. That's the regulatory. क्योंकि there should be control. अगर control नहीं हुआ तो people will just start using left and right, and that may have even further negative effects. So you know, these are, we'll touch upon, we'll come back to that. This, you know, how from preclinical, from discovery to clinical development that happens. So it's basically a team sport. And everybody has to pick up their load, everybody has to pick up their responsibility and contribute in order to get just one drug out or develop a therapy which is effective for the treatment of whatever the disease is, and to take care of the human health. With that, any questions? Yes? Any drug? It's coming. It's coming in my few lectures. So I'll touch upon that. There is, see, big data approach is very new, very recent. It may not necessarily give a drug, but it can contribute in developing something. If it can weed out, let's say 95% of the effort which will be wasted, and say don't do this, it's a huge contribution. So there are a lot of approaches all around the world which were based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, AI, ML, you will see everywhere, and based on that trying to develop new therapies and approach. There is no currently a drug we can say this came out of, because it's very recent, but it is definitely contributing tremendously in narrowing down the approach, narrowing down to the pool, which is hopefully be more effective, faster, and with less resources. So more to follow. Any other question? These approaches, there are many combination approaches being used. Again, how effective they are would require much better, much deeper understanding of the human biology. So initially, if you give something, it will give the reaction. It could be effective, the reaction that you're looking for. But then immediately the proteins adjust and goes back to the thing. So it's a very short-term outcome that you will see. So, oh yes, combination approach is being tested for a long time and will continue, because there are multiple approaches, because cell is not a simple thing, it's a very complex thing. Proteins, one has effect on the other. If you look at the structure of signaling pathways, for example, it's very hard to understand how one protein has an effect on another, because they are not single, akele nahi khade, they are all connected. So therefore combination approaches were there, are being used, and there will probably be more and more so being used. But are there, how effective requires for us to better understand the disease biology and develop the right methods, the right models which can replicate what happens in human body. So ultimately these are being developed for human body, and you have to have model which is outside of human body, which can tell you what will work in human body. You don't want to create humans as your guinea pig to test that. So that's where the regulatory things come into play. You can't just use left and right and start saying so there are those complex, and we'll cover those as we go further. Thank you very much. Enjoy your afternoon.